Before the storm, France was a kingdom of extremes, opulence for a few, hardship for the many. The grandeur of Versailles stood in stark contrast to the crowded, struggling streets of Paris. While the royal family and their courtiers lived in unimaginable luxury, most of the population faced daily uncertainty and want. The Ancien Régime was a rigid hierarchy, King Louis XVI at the top, ruling by divine right, followed by the privileged First Estate, clergy, and Second Estate, nobility. These groups believed their status was ordained by God, and their power seemed unshakable. These elites owned vast estates, paid little tax, and enjoyed lives of luxury, shielded from the burdens of ordinary people. Their days were filled with feasts, dances, and elaborate rituals, while servants attended to their every need. Beneath them was the Third Estate, 97% of the population, merchants, artisans, and millions of peasants. This diverse group included everyone from prosperous shopkeepers to the poorest laborers in the countryside. They carried the weight of taxes, fed the nation, and had almost no political voice. Their labor kept France running, yet their opinions were ignored by those in power. France's economy was crumbling. Debt from wars and royal extravagance pushed the country to the brink. The treasury was empty, and the cost of living soared as food became scarce and prices rose. The king's solution? Raise taxes. But the privileged refused, leaving the Third Estate to bear the load. The nobility and clergy clung to their exemptions, deepening the resentment of the common people. For the common people, life was a daily struggle against hunger and injustice. Bread, the staple of their diet, became a luxury many could barely afford. Families went hungry as the gap between rich and poor widened. The disconnect between the glittering court and the starving masses grew impossible to ignore. While the elite celebrated, the people outside their gates grew restless and angry. The system was a powder keg of inequality, waiting for a spark. Tensions simmered in the streets, and whispers of rebellion began to spread. France was a kingdom on the edge, its old order cracking, its people restless. The sense of crisis was everywhere, from the palaces to the poorest neighborhoods. The privileged clung to their exemptions, while the majority whispered of change. In salons and taverns, in fields and city alleys, talk of reform and revolution grew louder. The question was no longer if the system would break, but when. Time was running out for the old ways, and everyone could feel the tension in the air. The countdown to revolution had begun. The people of France stood at the threshold of history, ready to demand a new future. This was the world before everything changed, a kingdom on the brink, with revolution in the air. In Paris's cafes and salons, new ideas took root. Ideas of reason, liberty, and equality. Enlightenment thinkers like Rousseau and Voltaire challenged the old order, arguing that power should come from the people, not birth or divine right. Their words spread in pamphlets and books, fueling hope for a fairer world. Meanwhile, France's economic crisis deepened. Bad harvests led to soaring bread prices and widespread hunger. The royal family's extravagance, especially Queen Marie Antoinette's, became a symbol of elite indifference. Anger simmered as Enlightenment ideals met real suffering. Riots erupted. The Third Estate began to see their misery as injustice, not fate. The king's weak reforms satisfied no one, and the privileged resisted any real change. The stage was set for revolution. By July 1789, Paris was a city on edge. Rumors of royal crackdowns and food shortages ran wild. Tension filled the air as citizens whispered about the king's intentions, and uncertainty gripped every neighborhood. The cost of bread soared, and hunger gnawed at the city's poorest, fueling anger and desperation. The king's troops surrounded the city, and the dismissal of Finance Minister Necker sparked panic. Necker was seen as a friend to the people, and his removal was a clear sign that the monarchy might soon use force. Parisians feared the worst as soldiers gathered at the city's edge. Fearing repression, Parisians armed themselves and turned to the Bastille, a fortress prison and symbol of royal tyranny. The Bastille loomed over the city, its thick walls representing centuries of absolute power and injustice. On July 14th, a crowd stormed the Bastille, demanding gunpowder and the surrender of its governor. Negotiations failed, violence erupted, shots rang out, and chaos swept through the streets as revolutionaries clashed with the defenders. After hours of chaos, the people seized the fortress. The governor was captured, and the gates were thrown open. The victory belonged to the people of Paris. The fall of the Bastille was more than a military victory. It was a powerful symbol. The fortress's destruction marked the end of royal intimidation and the birth of a new era. The people had shown they would no longer be silenced. Their courage inspired others to rise up and demand change. News of the Bastille's fall electrified France and Europe. Word spread quickly, igniting hope and rebellion in towns and villages far beyond Paris. The revolution had crossed the point of no return. The people's actions set in motion events that would forever change the course of history. July 14th became Bastille Day, a celebration of the people's power, unity, and the enduring spirit of revolution. King Louis XVI was indecisive, clinging to absolute power but unable to act decisively. His queen, Marie Antoinette, was seen as an extravagant outsider, fueling public anger. As revolution spread, the royal family's world shrank. In October 1789, Parisian women marched to Versailles, forcing the king and queen to move to Paris, now prisoners of the people. Their authority shattered. They made a desperate attempt to flee in 1791, hoping to rally foreign support. They were caught at Varennes, destroying any remaining trust. The king was now seen as a traitor, not a father of the nation. The monarchy's fate was sealed. The failed escape pushed the revolution into a more radical phase. The old order was collapsing. The people, not the crown, now held the future of France. The National Assembly set out to build a new France, guided by the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Liberty meant freedom from tyranny and the right to participate in government. Equality ended the privileges of the nobility and clergy. All citizens were equal before the law. These principles were enshrined in the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. Fraternity called for national unity, a single people, not divided estates. The Assembly abolished feudalism, seized church lands, and reorganized France into rational departments. For a moment it seemed a new age had dawned, a constitutional monarchy, with the king's power limited by law. The dream of 1789 was alive, at least for now. The revolution promised a fairer, freer France, but the storm was far from over. The dream of peaceful reform quickly unraveled. The king's failed escape and threats of foreign invasion fueled panic. In 1792, the monarchy was abolished. France became a republic. Fear and suspicion gripped the nation. Enemies seemed everywhere. The Committee of Public Safety, led by Robespierre, launched the Reign of Terror. The guillotine became the revolution's symbol, swift, public, and merciless. Thousands were executed, nobles, priests, peasants, even fellow revolutionaries. The law of suspects made anyone vulnerable. A careless word could mean death. Liberty was sacrificed for security. Paranoia ruled. The revolution devoured its own children. The terror's leaders tried to remake society, but the bloodshed turned many against them. The promise of freedom had become a nightmare. France was trapped in a cycle of violence. At the heart of the terror stood Maximilien Robespierre. Once a champion of justice and equality, he became convinced that only ruthless purification could save the Republic. As leader of the Committee of Public Safety, he wielded immense power. His word could mean life or death. Robespierre targeted royalists, moderates, and even fellow radicals, sending rivals like Danton to the guillotine. His vision of a republic of virtue demanded absolute loyalty, but fear breeds enemies. By summer 1794, even his allies turned against him. The National Convention arrested Robespierre. He was executed the next day. With his death, the Reign of Terror ended abruptly. The revolution had destroyed its most zealous guardian. France was left exhausted, searching for stability. The age of Robespierre was over. After the terror, France was weary and leaderless. The people, exhausted by years of violence and uncertainty, longed for stability and hope. The streets of Paris echoed with the footsteps of citizens searching for direction, their faces marked by the hardships of revolution. The Directory government was weak and corrupt, unable to restore order. Political infighting and economic turmoil plagued the nation, leaving the French disillusioned with their leaders. Many wondered if the revolution had simply replaced one form of chaos with another. Into this chaos stepped Napoleon Bonaparte, a brilliant general and master of propaganda. Rising quickly through the military ranks, he inspired loyalty and hope among his troops and soon among the people of France. His military victories made him a national hero. His ambition knew no bounds. Each triumph on the battlefield brought him closer to power, and his charisma captivated a nation desperate for strong leadership. In 1799, Napoleon seized power in a coup, ending the Directory and establishing the Consulate. The swift and decisive takeover was met with little resistance, as many saw him as the answer to France's troubles. He quickly became first consul, then ruler in all but name. Napoleon centralized authority, reformed government institutions, and began to shape France according to his vision. Napoleon brought stability, the Napoleonic Code, economic reforms, and peace with the Church. His policies modernized France, laying the groundwork for a new society and restoring confidence in the future. He embodied both the revolution's ideals and its contradictions. While he promised liberty and equality, he also concentrated power in his own hands, blurring the line between revolutionary and ruler. In 1804, he crowned himself emperor, launching the Napoleonic Wars across Europe. His ambition now extended beyond France, as he sought to reshape the continent in his image. The revolution that began to end monarchy had produced a new kind of ruler. Napoleon was both a product of the revolution and its ultimate contradiction, a self-made emperor in a land that had once executed its king. France traded chaos for order, but at the cost of liberty. The promise of freedom was replaced by the reality of control, as Napoleon's rule brought peace, but also new restrictions. Napoleon's rise marked the revolution's end and a new era for Europe. His conquests redrew the map, spreading revolutionary ideas but also war and upheaval. The world would never be the same. Napoleon's legacy would echo through history, shaping nations and inspiring generations to come. The French Revolution reshaped not just France but the world. It ended monarchy and privilege, establishing the principle that government's power comes from the people. The revolution's ideas, liberty, equality, rights, spread across Europe and beyond, inspiring future movements for democracy and independence. The Napoleonic Code became a model for modern law. Nationalism, born in the revolution, would unite and divide nations for centuries. The revolution showed the power and danger of popular movements. Its questions remain: how do we balance liberty and security? What is true equality? The French Revolution is a story of hope, terror, and transformation. It reminds us that ordinary people can change the world and that freedom is never guaranteed. Its legacy endures, shaping the world we live in today.